Let's continue here with Chapter 2, talking specifically about plants. We learned a lot about the process of photosynthesis yesterday, how a plant makes its own food. Remember the three things that it needs? It needs sun, it needs water, it needs air, specifically carbon dioxide, and it gives off oxygen for us, and it makes its own sugars, its own food, and it sends it throughout all the, gives it to every last cell in the whole plant. Today we're going to really talk about the three parts of a plant that really they all have in common here. I want you to focus please on page 52 and 52. How about 50 to 53 there, please? That's where we're going to take all these pictures and things from, and it kind of explains it in more detail if you want to read through those. But really here, what I want you guys to focus on is really the three parts. And it looks very differently in a lot of different plants, but what plants share in common is they have leaves, they have stems, and they have roots. Now, plants, as you know, just like a lot of different things, they have things in common. They're made up of cells. These, in this case, are both vascular plants, which means they have tubes to transport nutrients, and a lot of times they have these three parts for most plants. Non-vascular plants don't generally have these, but at any rate, no matter if it's a small little dandelion or a huge, man, look at this huge redwood tree. This, if you can tell, I'm sorry it's a little bit blurry. It's not Bigfoot. It is a group of kids on a field trip getting their class picture taken, and look at how tiny they look with this huge redwood tree. Just amazing how God created something so massive and so big. But regardless if it's this redwood tree or this dandelion, they have leaves generally on top, they have a stem in the middle, and they have roots underground for the most part. Let's talk about each little section in more detail, and the first one I talk about is the leaves. It could be like you might see in some TV shows or movies where they have the Egyptian pharaoh getting fanned by these, big, huge, giant leaves. They can look like that. They can look here like these, this oak leaf here, or these pine needles here. Those are the tree's leaves, even though they're more needle-like. They're still the leaves. If you remember, you could tell a lot of the tubes, especially like in this leaf here, but even you can see in here the tubes that make them a vascular plant. That's how they transport nutrients. Not exactly like our bloodstream, but in the same type of way that it has tubes that transport the nutrients all throughout it to get to every last little cell. But all the plants have leaves, even though they look very differently. They have very specific purpose, and that's right here. Okay, you remember the chloroplast and the chlorophyll in the plant leaves. This is where, in the plant cells, that's in the leaves. That's where they capture the sun's energy, they use the water and the air, and they make sugar, and they transport it through the leaf veins or leaf tubes to get to every last cell, even all the way down to the roots. But the food making, the photosynthesis, where they make their own food, that's done in the leaves. I think I mentioned it was yesterday's video. I talked about the breathing, the air cycle that God designed so perfectly. We breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. Plants are the opposite. They breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. Well, where in the world does the plant breathe? They don't have nostrils, they don't have a mouth, but the stomata or the stomas almost look like little mouths if you could take a close-up picture, and those are in the leaves. It's kind of funny that you can almost see sometimes leaves turn over if it's some kind of a tree that has bigger leaves. That's partly why. Trying to get the air and stuff like that, because the stomas are underneath the leaves, and that's where they breathe. Getting into the stems now, again, a stem can be kind of stocky and flimsy, or it could be really rough like the bark on a tree, but serve the same purpose. It's really to give it a structure. Again, it's not bones like we have, but similar to that, it gives our body structure, our skeletal system, our bones. Well, same with the stems for the tree. It's a lot where the tubes are for vascular plants, so that the leaves can send down air and food, the sugars, down to the roots, and the roots can send up water all up through the stem, all up through the tubes, and that's really the main points of the stem. Give it some structure, give it some defense, right? So if any kind of animals are messing around with it, you guys know in the cactus, this is where all the different the prickers are and things like that. It helps defend and protect all the good stuff inside. The roots, incredibly important. These are almost like straws underneath the ground. It's amazing to see all this different thing underground that we don't even see from the plants. But this is used like straws to suck up water, so it can send it up its tubes, up to each part. It's amazing to see some of these plants, how in strong storms, if you remember the monsoons here, how they're really blowing so strong, and yet they can bend a little bit, but the roots actually anchor them into the ground. Now, here's the case on this right picture where you can see the storm was just too powerful, and it uprooted the tree. That's really why it's called uprooted. The roots come up. But you can see this huge patch of earth, all this ground that came up, because that's what the roots specifically do. They anchor it, and they actually hold down into the ground, so that when big winds come up, it's still anchored and it's still holding on tightly to the ground. But as you know, sometimes the storms are too powerful. Now with roots, this is just kind of interesting in my opinion. There's two types of roots. This is called the fibrous root. What basically a fibrous root looks like, if you pull up a plant, it's got a fibrous root. It kind of looks like a day with a bad hair day. It's just kind of all over, almost like a mop. It just got them all over the place, and they go all through the ground to suck up water, and that really holds it good into the ground. Another type of root is called a taproot. What a taproot is just this main root. As you can see, now it has some kind of literally root hairs is what they're called. Some root hairs that help anchor it and suck up more water. But for the most part, it just has this one long root that goes into the ground. Now, if you see the tumbleweed around, up in the above the ground again, this huge, plant, but God designed it in such a way so that when it dries out and when you see it rolling down the road, it's made that way because the taproot will kind of doesn't hold it in the ground well, and it can blow away and drop all of its seeds. That's kind of the life cycle of a tumbleweed there. But not all taproots are designed so that the plant can blow away easily. But if you like carrots, if you like radishes, you're literally eating the taproots. That's what a carrot is. But it's kind of interesting, I thought. But hey, let me get to your assignment here. I'm going to ask you to look at page 50, 51, and 52, and really go through those sections. And again, we've done something similar to this before. Don't just write down a leaf is green. You know that. Everybody knows that. You didn't learn that. Okay, I really want you to focus on something that 8 minutes ago, 9 minutes ago, you didn't know. You learned either by watching this video or by taking a peek in this book. This page. It kind of got one page devoted to each plant part, and read through it and write down something that you learned. I'm interested to see your what you learned, and please remember to put your name on it. Have a wonderful day as you praise your Savior.